Burnout, self-care, work-life balance, does that even exist anymore? I'm talking today to Nikole Stanfield. She's an intuitive life coach. She's been through the burnout cycle and she specializes in helping women find that healthy balance and figure out how they can make it all work. Excited to talk to her today? Listen in. Hi there, I'm Dr. Zoe. I'm glad you're here. This is the place for developing your strength as a woman and helping you navigate difficult relationships in your life, including that sometimes difficult relationship with yourself. Being a strong woman is not about what other people can see, and it's not about how loud you are about it. It's a quiet knowing. This isn't therapy, but you may feel like you've been to therapy after one of my episodes. Here, we also explore the intersection of psychology and faith, all with the purpose of creating a new kind of strong. Welcome to Redefining Your Superwoman. Welcome, Nikole. I am so happy that you are joining me today. And I know that this topic I know I'm a busy woman, busy mom, busy entrepreneur. And for many busy women out there, some of us are struggling a little bit. So I'm looking forward to talking with you today.
I'm so excited to be here and have a conversation about what it looks like and how it can look different. And so how we can avoid burnout, that thing that a lot of people don't really want to talk about.
Yeah, who wants to talk about that? We hear about it. And, I have clients that they go full steam ahead. I've been in this place before where you kind of think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. And then boom, it just kind of pops up. So yay, can't wait to talk about it. Before we get started, can you share your Superwoman win and your Superwoman fail with my audience?
Yeah. So I was thinking about the fail, and there are plenty of places where I failed, right? And plenty of
All of
times
us?
when I've been like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. And there's some times when I didn't listen and I just kept trying and I was failing. And instead of acknowledging that and being like, it's okay to fail, I was like, nope, I have to be perfect. I have to succeed. I will continue doing this until I succeed. And I didn't ever get to that success point. That was really hard to acknowledge. But I think the hardest fail, the one that was the hardest for me, was when I was in burnout. And I realized that I was doing some things that were really bad for me. I wasn't being authentic with who I am. And I got to a point where I didn't have any energy left, like nothing left to give. Not, oh, I can take a nap and I can figure it out and push through. Nothing left. And that was a terrifying place to be in. And the part of that that's a fail is that I spent so much time not listening to myself. And from the point of eating at my desk or forgetting lunch or being like, oh, well, I'll take a break in a couple hours. No big deal. This project is more important. So the physical all the way to the psychological, and being like, I'm really like frustrated and grumpy and this kind of grumpy troll person. And I don't want to be that person, but I am all the time because I feel like I'm just being pulled apart. And yet I never allowed myself to take that breath and step away and be like, it's okay. And we need to step back. Instead, I was like, I need to push through. I need to just make it through this thing. Right. And I think that that's my biggest fail, is that I wasn't okay with being honest with myself about where I was.
I think that, I know that I can relate. And I think that a number of women can relate, especially when you said, you'd gotten to that point where you were actually just hurting yourself. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to talk all about that today. Can you share your win?
My win is giving myself permission to do what's best for me. So that's a big concept, right? But a lot of times we feel guilty when we don't do something. We get invited to a family event and we really don't want to go, but we decide we have to go because we don't want to make that family member upset, or whatever the reason is. All legitimate reasons. Don't hear me say that they're not. And I've been there and I felt the guilt, and my superhuman woman win is that I am okay with acknowledging that I might feel guilty and still doing what's best for me. because I found that when I do what's best for me, it's also what's best for them. If I go to the event and I'm grumpy and I'm frustrated and I stand in the corner, whether it's a networking event or a family event, or it's something that I've committed to and I have too much on my plate, acknowledging that, saying it's okay, and I wouldn't show up how I want to, so I'm going to step away, and then having the people around me support me and love me for that and be like, that's fine, no big deal. And be like, I was so worried that they were going to ostracize me and push me away and be like, how dare you not come to this birthday party or thing or whatever. And it's like, I just don't have the energy to give. And being given permission, giving myself the permission to say no, as well as being supported in that, that's probably my biggest win to date.
That's a great win. Thanks for sharing it. And I have to repeat what you said. When you do what's best for you, it's also what's best for them. I think that's just needs an exclamation point right there. But also sometimes people aren't okay with it. That's a reality.
Yes.
And you've got to be okay with that too, and recognize that's about them and not about me. And even though they're not okay, I still have to do what's best for me because it's also best for them. So yes, I love it. Love it.
And if someone challenges you on it, that's a really good notice to be like, okay, yes, it is their stuff. It's not my stuff.
Right.
And at the same point, I want someone around me who can support me and love me and will support the decisions that I make when I say that I've had enough. So that's a good time to acknowledge, like, maybe this person is farther out in my circles, and maybe it's okay that they're farther out, and maybe that's not as important anymore, and I thought it was. So beautiful. Just a good notice if someone pushes back on that.
Okay, so we are going to talk all about, like you said, how we can reclaim that balance and get ourselves way far away, prevent or get out of burnout. Can you share a little bit of your story?
Yeah, I feel like it's really important to be super honest about where I got to, because a lot of times we don't like to acknowledge it, and burnout is this scary monster under the bed. It's like, if I burn out, everything's going to fall apart and it's just going to explode and my life is going to end, and it's just going to be the worst. It wasn't fun, I'll tell you that. And there's a part of me that's glad that I did it because I realized some things on the other side. So my burnout story, I'm pretty young, so I've experienced burnout, is the first thing that people are like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But as an entrepreneur, as an overachiever, as a perfectionist, all those things, I definitely pushed myself a lot. And like I said, I would push through things, and in college, I had a lot of extra commitments and all this stuff. So I was used to that lifestyle. As an entrepreneur, it was like doing my client work and doing my business and then networking on top of that and managing all these things and my family.
And marketing.
So, right? And working, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it got to a point where I started noticing some interesting things. I would finish a project, and instead of feeling really proud that I'd finished that project, I'd be like, oh, well, the client won't like it anyways. And I would just it was kind of like a pessimistic point of view. And I was like, that's kind of odd, huh? And looking back, I was probably in burnout for about 6 months before I realized it. But then I got to a point where I couldn't go on. I could barely work like 15 minutes before I had to take a break, and the break would end up being like an hour-long break. And as an entrepreneur, when you have to get all your work done and all that stuff, that's not a good productive day.
Right.
And I would avoid things, and I wasn't motivated to do anything, and I didn't want to learn anything new, and I was angry a lot. That was one sign that I didn't realize was a part of burnout. And another part was that my creativity just evaporated. I had nothing left. I had no new ideas. I had no solutions. I would sit in a meeting and I would just sit there hoping that nobody would pay attention to me because I didn't have anything to give or say or contribute in any way. And I was really scared of admitting that I was in burnout because I was worried I was going to lose this big client that I had. And so I took a week off to cure myself from burnout. And in that week, I didn't have to do anything except for feed myself. And by the end of 5 days, I was lower than I had been at the beginning of the week. Yes. I could barely go to the store to get groceries, and it was 5 minutes away. And I'd never been in that place, and that was a terrifying place to be because I didn't know how to get out of that.
Mm.
So in the end, I chose to walk away from some of the things that were really stressing me out and providing a lot of stress. And I did a lot of research online, and I took different stress tests and all this stuff to figure out, like, what is going on. I also had a couple of events happen in my life the previous year that are very high stressful events. There's this test. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I know that it's like Rahe Holmes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Rahe, R-A-H-E, is in it. And so it looks at all these life events, and then it evaluates them for how much stress it can give you.
Yes.
I got married the year before, lost a family member, a close family member, and I lost a client. So all those things were a lot of stress.
You
and was
had
saying that,
all the things.
right? Within the next couple of years, I was going to have a meltdown. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it was telling me. And luckily, I was in a position where when I was able to step away from that large client and I had to say no to some of that money, I still had some coming in, so that was good. It was very hard to, but I got an opportunity to take some time for myself and some of that space that I hadn't been giving myself, and realize that when I'm a grumpy, frustrated person, that's a sign that I've been pushing too hard. Even though my brain is saying, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this. And there's this crazy long list of all this stuff to do.
Right.
I wasn't putting myself on my to-do list.
So I want to stop there because I want women who are listening to, what I'm hearing is those signs and symptoms of burnout. Number one, like you said, stressors building up. And it sounds like your burnout probably turned into a bit of a depression as well, or you had coexisting, right, things going on there.
I can touch on that, but you continue.
Okay. And so you mentioned a couple things. One, anger, right? Irritability, lack of motivation, losing your sense of creativity, feeling like you have nothing else to offer.
Yeah.
What were the other ones that you mentioned? Or was that did that cover it?
It pretty much did. There's that like work week sickness where you know you're not sick, but you feel sick. You feel like you're recovering from something and you just want to stay home. Like right now in the pandemic, that's a little bit hard because you're already home.
Right.
But it's almost like you want to take a sick day because you just don't even want to go into work.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because when I start to see it in my clients, they'll talk about, you know what, I just need to take a week off. I just need to take 2 weeks off. And I always come back to them and I say, okay, but after those 2 weeks, right, you should take them off, sure. But when you come back, if everything is the same, if nothing's changed, you're just putting yourself right back in the same position. Not saying that you don't need to ever take a vacation, but you shouldn't feel like taking that vacation is somehow going to fix it all. It's a sign for you that something needs to change.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get scared about, like, I'm going to lose money. My business is going to fail. That was my biggest fear, is my business was going to fall apart and everything was going to fail. It changed a bit. It was some hard changes, absolutely. And at the same point, looking back, it was so much for the better. And I have been there where I went on a vacation and came back and it was the same. And I was like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not better? Why am I not fixed? This is a different situation. I was totally experiencing some burnout there. But yes, it's absolutely true that it's okay to give yourself permission to say, I still feel this way. And then what are you going to do about it?
So how did you get to a place where you were getting out of that?
That's a really good question. So I took this burnout test, and finally, obviously this is self-diagnosed, by the way.
Right.
This is not definitely, I haven't talked to a medical professional. And real quick, to touch on the depression, I was worried that I had some depression because I had low mood swings, and I didn't feel suicidal, but other than that, I had quite a few of the markers of depression. Mm-hmm. So I did work with an online counselor through that to make sure that I wasn't experiencing depression. And I wasn't, but I was on like the cusp of it if I hadn't talked to someone.
Okay.
So it was good to get some feedback and get some tools about, okay, this is what's going on. This is where I don't want it to go. And I can pull back from there before that happens. It's very easy to go into that depression. Absolutely. So I'm really glad you brought that up too. So the three things, the three signs of burnout that are evidence-based are lack of energy, a lack of confidence, and a lack of motivation. So those are the three things. But when I was taking the quiz, some of the questions were like, are you angry all the time? Do you avoid spending time with other people? That's one I forgot. I was like hermiting like crazy. And I don't want to talk to people. I don't want to engage at all. And those things that we never think were a part of burnout were showing up for me, all those signs. And I was like, I have all this stuff going on. So when I was able to step away, I was able to take some time to read and talk to my personal coach and talk to the counselor online. And between all those things, I created some habits that helped me. I also was able to prioritize myself more and find that balance that we're looking for. So one of the things that helped me the most, which I had so much judgment towards, and it's okay if people who are listening have judgment towards this when I say this word, well, two words, mindfulness meditation. So I was like, no way, I'm not going to meditate. That seems really silly and it doesn't make sense. And then I learned that when you can train your brain to be really reactive to things. And when you're in burnout, normally that's where it is. So your neurons fire really fast and you respond to things and you get really angry and it's kind of like a lightning bolt and you're just all the time exploding, even if you don't want to, but you are. And meditation helps retrain your brain so you can be more reflective and kind of take that beat before you respond. So there's still going to be those things that frustrate you, but you can see them with mindfulness meditation and they kind of go by you like bullets, like you're in the Matrix. And so you're kind of able to see, oh, wow, that thing used to really make me mad and I can just ignore
Watch it go by.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between mindful meditation and just regular meditation?
So mindfulness meditation has less of a religious influence on it, per se. That's how I view it. So some people are more open to hear mindfulness meditation because mindfulness is a keyword, buzzword that people are using right now. But for some people, it can be prayer. It can be something it's just taking that beat to breathe.
Taking that time, being quiet and still with yourself, which is paramount. And you're right. I suggest it to my clients and many of them like, I can't do that. What am I supposed to do? Just sit there? But you know what, when we finally get them into a practice, they can see the benefit and it takes time and it is a little bit of a muscle, right? That you have to train. But I think the other thing is we're so used to directives. Like, how can I do this right? Like, show me the check boxes. How can I meditate correctly? Because I'm doing it all wrong. Everybody says that.
Yes. When I tried it when I was much younger, I fell asleep during it and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't.
Me too.
This isn't going to work for me. And it turned out that I just needed to shift it a bit. So using a YouTube video, if you're new to it, you can do it in your car in a safe space so like other people aren't watching and you just look like you have headphones in or just listening to something. And I've found the Headspace app. I really like that.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
And it's just really simple to just sit there, close my eyes. And I found that I felt like I was going to be a weirdo and people were going to think that I was very strange doing that. And most people are like, oh, she's just sitting there.
Well, I can totally relate to that because when I first started yoga classes, I was like, oh, that meditation, that's the time when I can just lay and go to sleep. And I would always fall asleep during meditation, probably because I was partially, sleep deprived, but also because I didn't know how to just be still and just allow my thoughts to do what they do. And so I'm glad that you said that because it sounds like it's nothing. It sounds like it's a little thing, or it sounds like it's something that who wants to do that and that isn't going to accomplish anything. But when you take the time to just be still with yourself, your thoughts get to kind of percolate, they get to rearrange, they get to do what they need to do, especially for people who have trouble sleeping at night. A lot of times I'll tell them, well, do you spend time quiet with yourself during the day? And of course the answer is usually no. And I'm like, well, you know what? Your brain needs that. And so when you go to sleep or when you try to go to sleep, your brain's like, thank God she's finally being still. I'm going to use this time to read through all the thoughts that I've been needing to process that she's been distracting, me from all day. And if you instead give your brain space to do that, then you'll find that sometimes it's a lot easier to go to sleep because your mind has done what it needs to do during the day.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be super long. It doesn't have to be this
Right.
20-minute chunk. I found a lot of benefit from 5 to 10 minutes.
Excellent. So what else are the steps that you took or the steps that you help women now take?
Yeah, so I found so someone might be listening and they're like, oh my gosh, I feel all those ways that person is talking about, and they're scared. And that's okay. It's okay. Burnout doesn't have to be the end. It can be more of like a time to be in the chrysalis and then break free and become something different. For me, that was to become more authentic with who I am and worry less about what that looks like to other people. And if you're listening and you're like, yes, that's me, taking small steps is the best way to start. So one small step could be, are you taking your lunch break? Are you stepping away from the computer or wherever you're working? And if you're working at home, stepping out of your office or the place where you're at. If you can go out on a balcony or your bed or wherever you're at, right?
Yeah.
Stepping into a different location than where you're working is very important to take that break. And it doesn't always have to be like that it's specifically for lunch. It's more about you need to take the break. And that can also give you time to say, oh, I am hungry. Instead of saying, I need to take this caffeine, I need more coffee, and I need a power bar so I can make it through because this project, I have to get it done. When I've taken that break, even though I thought I had the deadline for the project, I was way more effective when I came back. Breaks definitely help increase your effectiveness. Even small breaks. If you can't take long ones, small breaks, 5-minute breaks help as well. They increase your productivity. So that's a simple way to do that. And then another way, a lot of times we forget to listen to ourselves. And I feel like that's what led me to burnout. And as a self-proclaimed intuition coach, I want to help people reconnect to listening to themselves on an intuition level, on a physical level, mental, all those things. So one way to reconnect with that is to find something that brings you joy. And we sometimes forget, especially as women, to spend time on ourselves. So if you take $5 or $10, $5 to $10, what would you spend it on right now for yourself? If you were in front of something and you could go get it. For me, it'd be fresh cut flowers. Some people don't understand that and they're like, that's stupid because they're going to die. They're already dead. Right. And I don't care. Even if it lasts for just a couple of days, it still doesn't matter because every time I see them, a big smile comes to my face. So what would it be for you?
That's a great question. Wow. My first thought would be one of my favorite coffee drinks. I don't know how self-caring that is, but that's kind of my first thought.
It totally counts. You would not believe how many people say coffee. It's normally coffee.
For me, it's actually green tea because that's what I drink instead of coffee, but it's kind of the same thing. Yeah.
No worries. So it's just that little thing that you can do for yourself that makes you just smile. And that's something that we forget to do. And the more that you do it, then you start paying attention to what are the things that make me smile and give me energy? And what are the things that I don't like and that drain me? Because sometimes we're going through our lives so much that we're like, I have to get all this stuff done and it has to be done this way. And we're not paying attention to the fact that we really hate doing most of those things.
Ooh, that's a big one. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. What?
I was doing that.
You were doing that. Yes. I think a lot of us are doing that, and we just get on remote and we don't look at any other options and we don't focus on self-care, which is why I wrote a whole book on self-care, which will be coming out in February. And part of that, like you said, is being able to ask yourself, what do I need? Really taking care of yourself as a human. Now, I know a lot of women are in this place where they are working from home, right? And they're trying to figure out that balance because it was a lot easier, although we all had all of our struggles before with separating work and home. But now when your work is in your home all the time, plus for many women, kids too, it's even harder to make that delineation. Do you have any suggestions for women in that place?
Yes, I do, because I've been working from home for years. So when my husband, who's a teacher, got sent home from school, right? And all of a sudden he had to work from home. And there were some things that started happening for him, like his back was hurting. And he was like, what's going on? And he would be he'd get headaches because he'd stare at the screen for too long. So some of these things you may have resolved by now, but it's really important to be able to have natural light. That's going to help improve your just whole balance. So whether you get to take time outside, that you take on one of your breaks, or you have a window and you raise the blinds, that will help a lot. Another small thing
A lot of
that
people forget that. They forget to go outside.
Yeah, we forget to go out. We're doing all these other things and stuff, but natural light is really important, and it will definitely help improve your mood. Another thing to help create some of those boundaries is that, do you have a time when you are done with work and when you start work? Because when work is your computer and it's 5 feet from your bed, and you have your phone that's going to alert you for any emails, it's not like you have to go in the office in order to answer stuff or to do things or talk to someone. You can do it all now online. There's a part where I will put a physical reminder in my phone so that it'll buzz and I'll know, oh, I have 30 minutes before the end of my day. Sometimes if you're an entrepreneur, you may not have a boss, which is great, but at the same time, we forget that we also get to have the end of a day. If you do have a boss, you'll need to make sure that that boundary is set up, and that the expectation is not that you're going to be answering emails at 8 at night, because that is that family time. You have the kids during the day, possibly, but at the same time, if you have that, you build that routine of when I'm starting my day, when I'm ending my day, and then it's really important to step away from the space where you work, have a physiological break, whether it's taking a walk or doing something totally different than what you did all day, or actually using a different device than the one you work on. So if you work on your computer, don't use your laptop to do fun stuff later at night, because then you're going to start checking work. Log out of Facebook, log out of your Slack, log out of whatever it is that's that reminder that could happen, or get an app that will quiet your Gmail and let people know, I'll answer your information tomorrow morning at this time, your question, but I can't right now. Like, this is my boundary, and that's okay. That's acceptable. It's normal, and it's healthy.
Boundaries. Yes. Boundaries are self-care. I love that. And, I spoke to a woman, which I thought was a great idea. And she said that when she started working from home, she quickly realized how important her commute was for her transition into and out of work. And so she decided to take that commute every single morning anyway. So she'd actually literally leave the house. She would walk for the duration of what her commute was and come back home. And that's when she started her work day. When her work day was over, she'd close it all down and she'd go take another walk and come back, and she was done, home from work. And just that, like you said, the physiological, just that physical, actual doing that motion helped her to separate again, because she was getting very lost between work and home.
Absolutely. That's a brilliant idea. Changing clothes. So out of having work clothes, that's another thing. If you're working from home, it's really easy to be like, oh, well, nobody's going to see me, so why don't I just wear something that's comfortable? Comfort's okay, but there's a part where it's really important for me to make sure that I'm wearing professional clothes, so I know I am working.
I'm in that mode, yeah.
This is my mode. This is where I'm at, because then later on when you're relaxing, if you're in the same clothes that you were in earlier, there's not that break in between. Oh, this is time to relax. Body's like, well, we're working in these clothes now, so why are these relaxing clothes?
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Thank you for those tips. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So can you tell us a little bit about who you work with and what kinds of services you have?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm an intuition coach, which is a title I totally made up myself.
Beautiful.
People are like, what is that? I've never heard of that before. And so I'm like, I made it up. And it was because I wasn't listening to my intuition, and I wanted to help other people say that it's okay to listen to your intuition in times when it's not fight or flight. When it's fight or flight, I totally listen to my intuition, and that served me really well. But there are other times when I have to make a big decision, or even a small choice about, am I going to go and put my energy into that thing, or am I going to go over here? And there have been times when I let it be an all head choice, and I found that I'm much happier if there's some head in there, but letting it be what feels best. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. It's not the logical path, but letting myself giving myself the space to do what I'm like, I'm really called towards this right now, and I'm just going to be okay with that. That is really important. And I want to help other people be okay with listening to what works for them instead of trying to make it look how they see people on Facebook looking, or others that they have around them, or whatever that is, right? All those things penetrate how we see ourselves as well as how we want to show up in the world. And so I work with people, with entrepreneurs, primarily who have who've had their business for about 4 years or more, and are wondering, what's going on? I'm starting to not be as excited about this anymore. I'm starting to feel some frustration. And so I work with them through the 9-step Love What You Do formula to help take them through creating simple habits and finding balance in their life, and then also prioritizing themselves. And that includes learning to say no and being a confident decision maker, as well as taking downtime, being okay with saying, I have scheduled time for myself and no one else gets to take it from me. And it can be free time, it can be playtime, it can be whatever you want, but it's part of my day is included in downtime. And it's essential for my health. And we forget that. We forget to take the time for ourselves, no matter where we're at, that whether we have a family or we just have dogs or whatever, you still have to take that time for yourself, from their spouse, from your commitments. Even if you don't know what you're going to do with it, that's okay.
It is okay. That's space, and you need that space. I feel like the answer really to all of it boils down to self-care, which is a big answer, because there's so many different ways to care for ourselves, but it all comes down to burnout really being about a lack of self-care and getting yourself out of it and maintaining yourself in a healthy way, about figuring out how to care for yourself in the best way.
And we're so good at caring for everybody else.
Yep.
And we so much forget about caring for ourselves. Exactly. And that's where some of those signs of like, I'm incredibly grumpy today, instead of being like, I'm being a bad wife, spouse, mother, whatever, say, why am I being so grumpy? Why do I not have energy? And being like, oh, maybe it's because I did too much. So shifting some of the things that we do, instead of saying, I need to just push through, and be like, what's blocking you? Maybe you need to take a break instead, and then you'll be more productive when you come back. Shifting some of the perceptions that we have, setting up some healthy boundaries, and helping my clients work through what works best for them. So I have concepts that they can apply to their lives, and then we do coaching so that when things don't go how they expect, or they look different than they want, or whatever, working through those roadblocks, we can do that together.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So how can people get a hold of you?
So the easiest way is to go to my website at myintuitioncoach.com, and they can email me at info@myintuitioncoach.com. And if they're curious about, hey, is burnout showing up for me? Or do these signs really apply to me or not? They can take my little 2-minute quiz that I have up on the top of my website to get kind of a gauge on, yeah, it could be showing up for you, or no, you just kind of have this one area where you're frustrated in, and there's some ideas that you could apply to maybe make it better. Like, we all have some level of burnout at some point, and it's okay. We get burned out from the holidays or our family or finals week. We've all felt that. Your mental health is so important, and I always encourage people to find some way to just take that minute, that beat, that downtime, whatever it looks like for them, just so they can acknowledge where they're at and look forward to where they want to be.
Beautiful. Thank you. I will be referring some people to that burnout quiz, and I might even take it myself.
Yeah, it's great. It's really simple. It's just kind of a put your toe in and see, is this where I'm at, or what does it look like for me?
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
I had a great time. It was lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for letting me share my story as well.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to the Dr. Zoe Show, redefining your Superwoman. New shows go up every Tuesday. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And text the word STRONG to 38470 to get my weekly encouragement. I look forward to connecting with you amazing women on social media throughout the week. Have a super week.